So, a very warm welcome to our discussion panel, Europe, a Promised Land. There's a question mark behind the Promised Land. And what will happen in the next 2 hours? I give you a little short agenda. First, we will have some introductory statements by our panelists. To my left, Monika Steinhauser from the Münchner Flüchtlingsrat, or Council for Refugees in Munich. To my right, Larry Macaulay. He is the founder and the editor-in-chief of the Refugee Radio Network. And on the left, Benjamin Seeb of the Project for Democratic Union, which organized this evening and is the host tonight. And we want to thank the PressClub to have us this evening. After these little statements, we will have a discussion here on the panel. And afterwards, we will open up the floor to you, to the audience. And my name is Alexander Wragge. I'm editor of Public Sphere. That's a non-commercial platform for political debates, user-driven in Berlin. And what I want to carry into this debate tonight is a little bit of the public sphere spirit. But I'd like to ask you a question. I remember the Libya war, and Germany was not supporting it. And I remember the debate that Germany was kind of accused not to participate in this war, and it was kind of a symbol of a failing European foreign policy because it was not in concert, it was not together. So, would you have said in these days Germany should join this war?
Well, the war was extremely badly fought, right? So I would not say that Germany should have fought this war. And Germany did not join this war because they thought that there was something bad with it. In principle, this was, like a remnant of the old Bundesrepublik that was excused from this kind of interventionism. Apart from that, it was very badly executed, and maybe if Germany had been involved and had helped, to think about how to approach this together with our partners, we could have gotten a better result. But obviously just going to India, letting Americans basically bomb them, we didn't really do that much of the bombing as Europeans there, and then go home, that's not a strategy that has ever worked.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I disagree a little bit because Germany is part of NATO, and infrastructures were used in Germany to bomb, to fight that war. And I'm quoting Angela Merkel herself, Germany's abstination does not necessarily mean neutrality. I have that text of what she said. Okay? So, in principle, we say no, but in principle, Germany is part of NATO. We can use our infrastructure to go. That being said and done, on the issue of open door, I'm not advocating for open door policy. I will give you an example. In my own house, I will not just open my door for every Dick and Harry to come in. Maybe he's crazy, maybe he's sick or anything, no. But there must be a process to follow. And the lady said people are coming for just reasons. Ma'am, I disagree with you totally on that. I'm a refugee and I'm an advanced age man, and there's no justification for a 16-year-old coming from a non-war zone on a dream that many of them are dying in the Sahara and Mediterranean. There's no justification about it. For people coming from non-war zone, non-war conflict countries, no justification. I work with them every day. They agree with it when we discuss one-on-one. They agree that many of them left school and they are now in Italy for 2 years in limbo. They are regretting leaving school, leaving college for this uncertainty. But to go back becomes a problem for them. So I will advocate for going back and teaching them the dangers that are there in coming. if there is justification as it is happening in war zones, in Boko Haram areas, I agree to that. People will move away from danger and they are justified to come and seek asylum anywhere they want to be. Most of the people that are running from conflicts in Africa are in African countries, many of them, in their conditions compared to what is here in Europe. So we need to really look inwards. The Goethe Institute and all this British Council and all of them, they need to refocus and repackage their selling of the ideas of Europe in Africa so that people will not take reckless decisions to come. You know, traffickers are making millions of money. It is more profitable to be a human trafficker and a smuggler in Libya today than any other business. You could make $1 million in the twinkle of a cargo. And this reminds me of the slave trade also that I read, you know. So we need to just face it and hit it at the head, go back. It's the reality. I don't want to dream that I just need to go back and start teaching. The little I can reach, I will reach them. That's just my opinion on that.
Yeah, there's a question.
So you're saying economic reasons are not a valid reason to move to Europe. I would disagree with that. So poverty is, in my mind, is a danger just as getting shot.
Yeah.
Okay? So I think, you know, maybe we can't in the near term do much about a common foreign policy of the European Union because we won't agree. But I think what we can do something about relatively quickly is economic policy, namely free trade agreements that are often disadvantage smaller countries. You know, namely free movement of capital, especially in countries that have very little accumulated capital already and have what we call underdeveloped capital markets, right? FDI, uncontrolled FDI, as the Chinese, for instance, go around by half of Africa. The Germans do it as well. You know, this is extractive, and we can see the Chinese have done this right in some sense, right? They require, for FDI, they require a Chinese partner, right? And these are policies which are forbidden in free trade agreements. And time and again, as we've seen in history, these kind of, if you want, mercantilist or protectionist policies are enable countries to build something like a critical mass. This is basically the word of Paul Krugman in some sense, right? So that's for one. For two is the agricultural policy. So not only not only the Europeans, but only the Americans and the Japanese and the Australians. What do? We have overproduction and we dump our surplus on the world market. So the grain prices, for instance, used to be so low that nobody in the world could produce at that price. Not an American farmer, not a European farmer, not a Japanese farmer, no one. And I think that is something that, especially in agricultural societies, destroys people's livelihood, and of course they move. Of course. And I think that's fair. Right?
Cool. But what happened to those leaders that had those agricultural policies of feeding itself rather than relying on European wheat import into Africa? They were killed.
That didn't go so well for them.
They were taken out of the picture because they were not playing the fair deal of the European. So leaders they look at these trends, you know. They are afraid also of taking those decisions. They label them as socialist, as communist, and so on and so forth. So there's a danger also there. There's fear also there. You know?
I'm not blaming. I'm not
economic migrants.
We saw was what happened to Mossadegh after he said BP. You know, we want a bigger share of the oil profits.
Okay, good. When you say economic migrants, of course, people who come from the Horn of Africa where there is famine and things like that, agreed. But when you look at people coming for economic reasons, how many millions is the population of Africa? And how many thousands are the people coming for economic reasons? So, there's a disconnect there. So for me, I believe in the areas of a 16-year-old that has $2,000, $3,000 or euros to pay a human smuggler to come to Europe is not in a dire economic situation. Where did he get 3,000 euros? We have parents in Egypt sending young kids to come to Europe on boats, pay for them, because they will get a better life. Dream also. in Europe. Most of these kids are in danger in Rome. We saw what happened last year. Some of them are being killed. Their organs are being sold in the black market. So this is why I say, for a young underage who cannot determine his economic status or future at 16, 14, or is not supposed to cross and leave home. You need to be equipped. You need to be equipped to come into that jungle.
No, he's not. And flight would be much cheaper, right?
Yeah, if we could get the visa.
If we could get the visa.
And there is no way a mom or a family will give a 13, 14, 15-year-old to go to Europe. I don't know where it will happen in Africa. I come from Africa. I don't know. Except there is a danger. If there's a danger to that family, political persecution, programs going on, yes, you could use all means to get out. They did it in the 80s and the 90s. People went to neighborhood, you smuggled yourself. When I was fighting the pro-democracy movement in Nigeria in the 90s, we had a route. We used to go across the border and go to European embassies and seek visa, political asylum from those embassies. And they were given.
Not anymore.
But not anymore, because when the European Union evolved, they cut all those ideas that were working and brought new ideas. So this is where I differ a little bit in my opinions on how to tackle these issues.
No, I meant not only to comment, we learned that, the amount of people coming to the European Union in the big picture is not all that rapid, But also inside Africa, this creates huge problems, right? The millions and millions and millions of people who are displaced. And I think part of this is due to the economic policy of the European Union.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it's fair. If you want a better life for your child, to send him somewhere else.
Yes.
It might not be the wisest to put him on some crappy boat.
Listen, excuse me, please. When I told my mom a couple of years ago, 15, 16 years ago, that I wanted to travel, I was 18 years old, I had finished college. They said no. My whole family said no. Where are you going? I had to leave on my own. I had to take that decision on my own. And I knew what I saw on the other side. Freedom is quite something else when you are in it. It's a huge struggle. And if you're not equipped enough to balance and deal with it, you could lose your life also in these kinds of journeys that we take. So I don't see any family that would allow, now they are doing it now, because of this phantom, this dream of a better life in Europe. I've seen parents give young babies to Europeans to take to Europe, take him, he will have a better life. So economics works is part of the problem also. Where it will work is when Europe starts banning those monies coming to Europe. When there's a law that says you can't put dirty money in Europe. But that is very difficult. So that's it.
It will go somewhere else. It will go to the Caribbean. So if Switzerland says no more dirty money, it will go to the Caribbean. So another bank will make the deal. So that's why it doesn't happen. But I think we have always supported dictatorships when it fitted our plans. So we supported Gaddafi for a long time, and then we dropped him because it was no longer, we thought it no longer profitable for us. And we have supported Bashar Assad in Syria because it fitted our policies. And then we thought it doesn't fit anymore, then we dropped him. I mean, you have to think before you support this kind of regimes, and we didn't do that. So, and we are still, we are the ones that sell the most small weapons in the world. So that's a German championship. And for what the Dublin system, which was also mentioned, it never worked. The last 2 years, only 10% of the Dublin cases really were deported. So it never worked. So it's just an illusion. It's a dream. It's a dream like a small boy's African dream. Yeah. So no African would take the boat if he could take the plane. It's not more expensive. It's just he doesn't get the visa to board a plane, and you can't board a plane without the visa. So this is something that could be changed, of course. And but perhaps we should come back to the situation here with the refugees here. We won't prevent them from coming, not in the short term anyway. So we do have institutions and instruments in Europe on paper. We do have a European refugee policy. In theory, refugees will have the same conditions in every member of the Schengen system. The same chances to get protection, but in reality, it doesn't exist. So, like, refugees from Somalia usually get protection when they come to Germany, but they don't when they come to Denmark. Refugees from Serbia don't get protection when they come to Germany, but when they make it to France, 19% of them get protection. So we should look at our own policies and why is it like that? We should do our own homework before we tell someone else to do theirs. Yeah.
Yeah, Benjamin, would you like to answer to this?
I think that was basically the one sentence that sums it up. We do have institutions, but we only have them on paper. Going back to the foreign policy question, I think that is important because we are talking about this crisis in the Mediterranean and what happens when people come here. But as we said earlier, it's about 40,000 people who are currently refugees in Europe, and it's about 60 million people displaced. And we need to be very clear that we share a responsibility for the situation, and we have to ask ourselves if we do not share a responsibility for improving their situation. Now, this can quickly lead to calls for intervention, and this can quickly lead to foreign policies that are not well thought through, that involve blind weapon sales, that involve trying to fight a huge army which is then actually defeated after 2 days and then have no plan whatsoever what to do afterwards. And this is a direction that we have seen in the past decade that has contributed massively to the situation we're facing now. We need to put a stop to it. We need to return capacity to European foreign policy, and we need to return strategy to European foreign policy. We need to have institutions that actually are capable of both protecting our interests and protecting the rights of those who now desperately try to come here because they like the ideals we stand for. And we also need to make sure that they're effectively used.
I'd like to ask you, if we had capacity, strategy and strong foreign policy you want to have, what makes you that optimistic that these capacity and strategies that is better than now? Because it could be that you have a strong capacity on European level, but it's not protecting civil rights, it's more protecting the fortress Europe.
You know, that again comes down to a democratic choice. If the majority of Europeans say, okay, we just want to close the borders, well, then it's going to be like that for a while. But there are people like Larry out there who actually fight to, to change this course, to make the case And as long as we don't even, even if we wanted to at the moment, what could we do? Send 2 ships instead of 1? Or, I don't know, bomb Libya for 2 days less or 2 days more? It's not like we have any options at the moment. So the way in which we use it after, there's no guarantee, Building capacity never gives you a guarantee that the right thing is going to happen once you have it. But at least it puts you in a position where you have options and where you have choices. Yes?
I would like to ask a question or add to what Mr. Zeeb said. And I think that comes back to the Project for a Democratic Union, who has invited us here this evening. I think one of the, for me, that's my personal opinion, one of the major problems we have for not having those capacities and those strategies is that at the moment foreign policy, especially when it comes to the refugees and the migrants from Africa, is that those policies are very much focused from those countries who before in history had serious involvements in Africa. So of course the French colonialists will have a special attitude, the British will have it, the Italians will have it. And if it then comes to dealing with the problem of the refugees, those people and those countries will take very strong positions. Germany will be in a sort of in-between situation, not really knowing should it go forwards and backwards. And there is a lot of other countries in Europe which had no involvements, which will sit quietly back. I don't know, countries like Finland can grin and say we're not involved in the problem with refugees at all, because first of all we've never set a foot, we've never had a colony in Africa, so let the other battle and fight and not come to any solution, because as long as the others don't come to a solution, no refugee will go to Finland. And because, as what you said, if young people look at Facebook and get there, we live in an age of media, of information, everybody gets informed every day. If the information is correct, is a totally different question. But then, of course, the countries which are in the media a lot, because a lot is in, are countries like Germany, or the United States, or others. So, of course, young people will hear what is going on. They will not hear what is going on in Finland, or Sweden, or Norway, or places like that. So, of course, I think until that is where a communal, real strategy for a European Union, let's talk about in 20 years, is going to be the only possible solution to deal with that, because then it's really, it can be much more, it's not so much focused on what has happened before, responsibilities. I mean, everybody now calls it the French have a responsibility, British have a responsibility. You can hide very well behind the responsibility and not do anything.
I absolutely agree, of course. The national foreign policies for issues that concern Europe as a whole have stopped working many years ago. So we do not only see this in the context of this crisis, we see it on a larger scale with the Poles, for example, absolutely not in a position and not interested in concerning themselves with this situation in the Mediterranean at all, while at the same time they do call for the same kind of capacity in a completely different context on the eastern border. And there's of course a slight problem there. If we decided to actually do European foreign policy as Europeans, that would call for direct democratic legitimation. We cannot have a common European foreign policy, a common currency at the same time, and then pretend that we're all still national states. So I think that one of the big problems here is that the model of cooperation between sovereign nation states in Europe has come to a logical end, and we will not be able to address these kinds of questions in the future if we do not indeed change the political system.
There was another question?
Yeah, I had many comments in my head and quite a few questions, but I guess I was trying to identify one that I can pose at the moment. And I guess I have a question to both you, Monica, and you, Benjamin. Considering what you said, that there is no uniform foreign policy when it comes to Europe, regardless of what issue you look at. Look at the Eastern Front and the Russian situation. There is no uniform approach to taking a strong stance in favor of Ukraine and defending the country against foreign aggression. That's not the question. But to me, what comes to mind is, you know, considering the realities of today, how can we devise at least a short-term policy or an approach that would encourage European states to collaborate on this very important issue? Because I guess, along with the situation in Greece right now, potential Brexit and maybe potential Brexit, migration is one of the key concerns at the moment for most European states. So what model can we adopt? What incentives could work? Because I'm a big believer in incentives, you know. What can be realistically done? And I think you, Monica, started actually talking about it. You touched upon that when you talked about the revisions that have to be done to the Dublin Convention. So just curious to hear your opinion, because I think it's an issue that's not going to disappear, neither from the realistic agenda nor from the media agenda. It's something that has to be dealt with. And I think Europeans are just tussling and putting it on each other's side, but no realistic solution is being developed at the moment.
Like I said, we have to change our visa policy. We have to give more people from other countries the chance to get here legally. We have to deal with the refugees respecting their own will and what they want. We have to realize that more refugees will come, more migrants will come, if we want them or not. And we have to remember that if you build walls to shut out others, you also shut yourself in. The walls work in two directions, and we tend to forget that.
If you take an approach like the visa one, and you try to play this through now in the current political discourse, where when we talk about quotas, Italy and France can't even agree on that, right? So national perspective dominates everything, and unless we cannot overcome this, I do not think we can solve this problem. We might be able to paper it over, you know, once and again. We might be able to send one more ship. We might be able to save a couple more people. We might be able to, you know, like Larry, this is a very commendable thing he's doing. He's actually had there's civil society engagement. We can try to help within the current condition to you know, alleviate some of the pain. But that's like taking painkillers. In the long run, without systemic change, we won't be in a position to really address this crisis. And it might, you know, it might go away, like radicals come and go, and refugee streams get redirected, and so on. And you know, maybe 5 years after a couple more thousand people drowned, it just stops. But there will be another challenge. The general problem that we as Europeans sit in a world that is globalized and globalizing rapidly, with problems we're facing also on a global scale, and thus unable to address them. This is not going away. So I do not really see a different solution.
So are you saying it's a matter of political will, then?
It is a matter of political will. Yes, it is there's about, there was a recent poll, I think it was in The Economist, where it said that 40% at the moment of Europeans would actually favor a federal Eurozone, at least, with I think 25% undecided. So it's not a lost cause, but it needs to be put on the agenda.
There's a comment? Yeah.
A question rather. Thinking about the refugees who finally made it here to Europe, Germany and so on, how can we help them best for now? I mean, when we think about the war refugees, it might take years until there's peace in their home countries again, so they might stay for years, maybe forever. So how can we help them? And then you talked about, you know, teenagers, people in their early 20s, who should not have left in the first place because they came on false hopes and false dreams. Would they be helped, you know, by paying a safe journey back so that they could rejoin their families, so they actually have a chance to go back to their families? Would they, you know, sorry, got distracted here. So, so that's my question. So how can we help different kinds of refugees? What can we do sort of now? Yeah.
We have to just think of how you want to segregate the refugees, you know. And IOM has a policy of helping people get back. Very minute number, out of 1,000, they may be out of 100,000, they help 100 people. And that's not working. Where is all the money going to? Where are all the funds going to? They have adequate funds every year for these things. Where does it go? And how do you help them? They are already here. We are already here. So how do you help us? Through different means. First of all, these means are there already, but the implementation, the approach to the ways they implement them is not something. That's where something is wrong. How do you teach newly arrived European values? The approach is they put them in a classroom and teach them European values. No, that does not work. And this approach that I'm talking about is meeting with them, interacting with them, getting to know them, and they are getting to know you too. Equal partnership. There's a lot of agitations in public opinions of they are coming here to take our money, our jobs. I was with a high school student a month ago, and he told me a story between him and his driving instructor. They are both Germans, and the driving instructor leans towards the Pegida movement. He doesn't like foreigners, he doesn't like anything. So the kid was asking him, but sir, why don't you like foreigners? Why are you Pegida? He said, because they are coming to take our jobs. Then the guy said, but they say they don't have papers, they cannot walk. So how are they taking our jobs? Then the man became speechless and said, drive on. So these are the lack of communication that is going on. People have wrong perception of the real stories, the real situation, the procedures. And in my struggle in Germany, I found out that most Europeans don't even know the laws that govern them. They don't have a clue about it. Dublin 2 or 3, when it started rising up, many of them were shocked that these laws were even there in the first place. These rules were there in the first place. So, how can we help? Social engagement is very key. And how do you empower them socially? Education, integration, and letting them interpret their creativity into reality. If they can sing, help them to sing. If they are tailors, help them to do craft work. If they are artists, painters, enhance them. Don't put the lines of bureaucracy in front of them. So those are the ways that I think could work. Then we can also put pressure, public opinion pressure on the politicians to give them example of where it's working socially and how they could change the laws, the rules. Dublin 2.3 is not working anymore. It was written when people were not coming by boat. The reality is that people are coming by boats now. So what should they have done? Sit down on the table and change these rules. Italy is threatening today that it's going to give. Germany has always done one thing. they give money to Italy to ease the tension. They did that from 2011 till now. I was part of it. And of course you can't contain it. It's gonna come out. It's like zombie, it comes out. It evolves, you know. And it's evolving now. Italy cannot control it anymore. Then Italy knows that most of these people want to go. And France is saying no, they can't come here, take them back. Of course, he's threatening to do what Berlusconi did in the early period of the Arab Spring. He will give them permits. That's plan B for Italy. They will give permits to those people to cross over under the free movement, and it becomes chaotic for the German society to see them in the train stations and so on and so forth. So we must quickly come together now and fashion out a solution. There is always a solution to every problem because the problem was created by us in the first place. We just need to look inwards. That's my own